Consider, for a moment, how fragile civilization truly is. We build our lives upon invisible networks, power grids humming beneath our feet, water flowing through hidden pipes, food traveling thousands of miles to reach our tables. We trust these systems so completely that we forget they exist at all. We flip switches expecting light. We turn taps expecting water. We assume that somewhere, someone is maintaining the machinery of modern life. But what happens when that assumption shatters? Rick Grimes awakens to silence. Not the peaceful quiet of a sleeping hospital, but something far more unsettling, the profound absence of the mechanical symphony that defines human civilization. No ventilators breathing in distant rooms. No intercoms announcing codes. No elevator mechanisms humming through walls. The backup generators, those faithful guardians designed to outlast any crisis, have finally exhausted their fuel and fallen silent. He does not yet understand what this means. The human mind, you see, resists catastrophe. We are pattern-seeking creatures, and when patterns break, we search desperately for familiar explanations. A power outage, a temporary emergency, some problem that the authorities are surely addressing even now. Rick moves through corridors expecting to find someone, a nurse, a doctor, a janitor, anyone who can explain why the hospital feels abandoned, why flowers have wilted in their vases, why the cafeteria trays sit covered in dust. The first body he encounters tells him nothing. Medical facilities know death intimately. The first bodies teach him nothing either. Perhaps there was an outbreak, he thinks. Perhaps quarantine protocols were enacted. His mind builds rational scaffolding to support a world that no longer exists. Then he sees the barricaded doors, the bullet holes in the walls, the messages scrawled in desperation. Don't open. Dead. Inside. In that moment, the scaffolding collapses. What Rick discovers as he emerges into sunlight is perhaps the most profound transformation in human history. Not evolution, but devolution. Not progress, but regression. The end of everything humanity spent 10,000 years building. The streets of King County, Georgia, stretch before him like archaeological ruins of a civilization that died overnight. Cars sit abandoned in perfect rows, their drivers having fled on foot. Traffic lights continue their endless cycle, obeying protocols for a society that no longer exists. And everywhere, there is silence. This is what systems collapse looks like. The infrastructure that sustained 330 million Americans required constant human intervention. Power plants burning fuel, water treatment facilities, processing waste, distribution networks, moving goods, communication systems linking nodes. Remove the humans, and the entire web begins to fail. Not slowly, not gradually. Within hours, the cascade begins. Rick does not know it yet, but the power grids failed first. Nuclear plants executed automated shutdowns. Coal and gas facilities went dark as operators fled or died at their posts. Wind turbines spun uselessly without maintenance. Solar panels generated electricity for buildings with no one left to use it. The lights stayed on in some places for days, powered by momentum, by battery reserves, by the last dying efforts of automated systems. Then they failed, section by section, city by city, until the night sky returned to its ancient darkness. He walks through his neighborhood, seeing fragments of interrupted lives. A lawnmower sits where it was abandoned mid-stripe, its operator having perhaps heard screams or seen something impossible. A child's bicycle lies on its side, training wheels still spinning slightly in the breeze. Rick calls out. No answer comes. The silence is not peaceful, it is hungry. Waiting. Wrong. When he reaches his home, the door stands open. Inside, the evidence of hasty departure. Laurie and Carl left in a rush, taking only what they could carry. No note, no explanation, just absence. Rick stands in his son's room, looking at toys that will never be played with again, and the reality begins to truly settle into his bones. Whatever happened, it was so terrible that his wife, his capable, protective wife, fled with their son into the unknown, rather than wait for him to wake. This is when Morgan Jones saves his life. A baseball bat strikes Rick from behind with perfect precision, enough force to incapacitate, not enough to kill. Morgan has learned this terrible mathematics through trial and error. How hard to hit to drop a person. How to determine if they are living or dead. How to survive in a world where the wrong decision means death for yourself and your son. When Rick regains consciousness, he is bound to a bed in a stranger's home. Morgan and his son Dwayne watch him with weapons ready, testing him with questions, looking for the telltale signs that would mean Rick is one of them, one of the dead things that walk. And here, Rick learns the truth. They came back. The dead. They rose from wherever they fell and walked and fed on the living, not quickly shambling, slow, relentless as a tide, but unstoppable in their hunger. A bite spreads it, a scratch spreads it, death spreads it. The authorities tried to contain it, tried to establish safe zones, tried to maintain order. The military mobilized, the National Guard deployed. Emergency broadcast systems announced shelter-in-place orders, evacuation routes, safety protocols. It failed. All of it failed. Morgan explains this with the weariness of a man who has watched civilization end in real time. The military checkpoints became overwhelmed within days. Soldiers were people they abandoned their posts to save their families. Communication networks failed as cell towers lost power and satellite systems lost ground control. The internet, that supposedly indestructible web, vanished when the server farms went dark. Emergency. Services received 1 million calls and could respond to none. Hospitals became death traps as the infected flooded emergency rooms and died and rose again within secured facilities. The supply chains severed within a week. Grocery stores were looted or abandoned. Distribution warehouses sat unguarded and undelivered. Farms continued producing food with no way to transport it to cities. 330 million people had perhaps 2 weeks of food in their homes. The optimists had a month. After that, starvation would kill more efficiently than any shambling corpse. Rick listens to this recitation of failures with growing horror. He was a sheriff's deputy. He swore an oath to protect and serve. He trained for emergencies, active shooters, natural disasters, civil unrest. But this was beyond any contingency plan. This was the collapse of every system simultaneously. Morgan shows him the scope through the window. The dead walk. They are not movie zombies moving with theatrical speed. They are slower, clumsier, but there are so many of them. They respond to sound. They pursue living flesh with mindless determination. And they do not tire. They do not sleep. They do not stop. "Where do I go?" Rick asks. "Away," Morgan answers. "Just away." But Rick has a destination. Atlanta. The emergency broadcast said Atlanta was safe. Federal forces were establishing a perimeter. Refugee centers were operating. It was the last message before the broadcasts went silent, a beacon of hope transmitted into the growing darkness. Morgan warns him. Morgan has heard the broadcasts too. Morgan knows what they meant, that Atlanta was where people gathered, and where people gathered, the dead followed. But Rick must go. His family might have gone there. His wife, his son, they might be waiting. Hope, you see, is more powerful than reason. It drives us toward almost certain danger because the alternative is accepting that everything we love is lost. Rick takes Morgan's advice. He gathers supplies, water, food, weapons, gasoline. He learns the new mathematics of survival. Check every corner, make no unnecessary noise. A gunshot attracts them for miles. Conserve ammunition, aim for the head, only the head works, and never, never let them bite you. He finds a police cruiser with fuel and heads toward Atlanta, along highways transformed into monuments to panic. The interstate is a parking lot of abandoned vehicles. People fled the cities en masse, believing that rural areas would be safer. They were wrong. The infection was everywhere, in every town, every farmhouse, every supposed refuge. The dead walked in forests and fields just as they walked on city streets. Rick sees the evidence of recent horror everywhere. Luggage scattered across the road, car doors hanging open, bloodstains on pavement, but no people, the living, have learned to stay hidden. Silence means survival. As he approaches Atlanta, the traffic becomes more dense. The exodus was massive, millions trying to leave simultaneously. They made it perhaps 10 miles before gridlock stopped them completely. Then they abandoned their vehicles and walked, or tried to. Rick can see where desperate people forced their way between cars, crushing mirrors, breaking windows. He can see where they were caught. The dead are thicker here. They wander between vehicles in dozens, in hundreds. Rick moves carefully, quietly, conserving fuel, looking for a path through. He does not yet understand their behavior, does not know that sound attracts them or that they hunt by movement and noise. He is still thinking like a man from the old world, where danger could be reasoned with or fought directly. He makes it to the city outskirts before the cruiser runs out of fuel. Atlanta rises before him like a corpse itself, a city of 6 million reduced to a tomb. The skyline stands intact but empty. No lights in the towers, no traffic in the streets. Smoke rises from scattered fires that burned themselves out days ago, and at the street level they gather, thousands of them, tens of thousands, the dead drawn to where the living once congregated in vast numbers. Rick proceeds on foot, moving toward the center, still clinging to hope that somewhere in this graveyard city he will find the refugee centers, the federal response, the salvation promised in the broadcasts. He does not see the helicopter that passes overhead, a National Guard pilot making one final reconnaissance flight over a city already lost. But the dead see movement above. They lift their milky eyes skyward. They begin to shuffle in the direction the helicopter flew. Rick follows them, not understanding. He rounds a corner into a plaza and walks into a horde. There is no other word for it. Hundreds of them. They turn as one toward the sound of his footsteps. They reach. They moan a sound he will hear in nightmares for the rest of his life. A hunger-given voice. Rick runs. He fires his pistol, dropping the closest ones, but gunshots are beacons in the silence. More come, from side streets, from buildings, from places he cannot see. They funnel toward him down concrete canyons with terrible patience. He takes refuge in a tank, an M1 Abrams abandoned in the middle of the street, a monument to the military's failed last stand. He crawls inside and pulls the hatch closed as hands grasp at him. Inside, in the darkness, surrounded by the moaning of the horde, Rick finds a corpse, a soldier who chose this steel coffin as his final refuge, a man who wrote a note in his last moments. God forgive us for what we've done. Rick does not know what that means. Not yet. But in that moment, trapped and alone, he begins to understand the true scope of what has been lost. The federal government did not secure Atlanta. There are no refugee centers, no organized response, no coming rescue. The broadcasts were lies, hopeful lies told by desperate people trying to maintain order as the world ended around them. The assumption of civilization was false. Every safety net has failed. Every authority has collapsed. He is alone in a dead world, and he has no idea where his family is or if they survived. Then, impossibly, a voice crackles over the tank's radio. "Hey, dumbass. Yeah, you in the tank. Cozy in there?" Hope. Again. That terrible, Wonderful human reflex. Someone is alive. Someone has power and communication equipment. Someone might have answers. The voice guides him out a risky exit through the tank's bottom hatch while the horde clusters above. Rick emerges into daylight and runs, following Glenn's directions through alleys and over fences, until he reaches a rooftop where a group of survivors has been scavenging supplies. They are the first living people he has encountered besides Morgan. They are terrified, exhausted, and barely holding together, but they are alive, and they tell him something that changes everything. There is a camp outside the city, survivors banding together for safety, and among them they saw a woman and a boy who match Laurie and Carl's description. This is how Rick Grimes finds his way to the quarry camp, not through planning or strategy, but through desperate hope and blind luck. What he discovers there is the first experiment in post-collapse society, 22 people trying to recreate civilization on a hillside overlooking Atlanta's ruins. The quarry camp represents humanity's first strategic response to the collapse. Not government continuity plans those failed within days, not military organization the chain of command dissolved. This is grassroots survival. A coalition formed not by law or hierarchy, but by the simple logic that groups survive better than individuals. They have established basic systems: a perimeter watch, a fire for cooking and warmth, tents arranged for mutual protection, shared resources. Glenn's scavenging runs bring back supplies for everyone. Dale's RV provides elevation for spotting threats. Shane Walsh has taken unofficial leadership, organizing work details and security rotations. It is crude, it is fragile, but it is something. Rick sees his family, Laurie, Carl, alive, safe for the moment. The reunion is overwhelming joy and relief and terror mixing into something indescribable. He learns that Shane led them here, that Shane told Laurie Rick was dead, that Shane has been the reason they survived this long. But Rick also sees the camp's fundamental weakness. They have no long-term plan. The quarry provides water, but game is becoming scarce. Supply runs become more dangerous as the dead concentrate in areas where the living gather. Arguments break out over resource distribution. Shane's leadership style, autocratic, based on physical dominance, creates resentment. The group is splintering even as it tries to cohere. This is the essential problem of survival in the collapse. Humans survived for millennia, in small bands, through cooperation and shared purpose. But we evolved those behaviors over thousands of generations. Here, strangers must trust each other instantly with their lives. They must subordinate individual interests to group survival. They must create new social bonds while processing devastating trauma. Some manage it, others cannot. The first death at the camp, Amy, attacked during a moment of inattention during a fish fry, demonstrates the brutal reality. There is no safety. Not really. The perimeter can be breached. The watchers can miss threats. One mistake means death, and death means you become a threat to everyone you love. Rick watches them deal with Amy's death and learns how far the world has fallen. They must destroy her brain, must put her down like a rabid animal before she rises and attacks them. Andrea, her sister, cannot accept this, cannot understand that the person she loves is gone and only a hungry corpse remains. Others must force the issue, must commit this terrible mercy. This is what systems collapse has done to humanity. It has reduced us to these awful calculations. Who lives? Who dies? Who must be killed to protect the group? And it has only been weeks since the world ended. Rick realizes the truth Morgan already understood. There is no rebuilding what was lost. The infrastructure is gone. The supply chains are severed. The power grids are cold. The agricultural system that fed billions is abandoned. The medical knowledge exists, but without laboratories and manufacturing, it is useless. The information is stored on dead servers and in books no one can access. They are starting over. From almost nothing, trying to remember how to survive without the vast machinery of civilization supporting them. It is Bronze Age existence in a landscape littered with the corpses of modernity, and the question Rick asks himself as he looks at this fragile camp, at his exhausted wife and traumatized son, at these strangers who have become his survival family, is the question that will define everything that follows. How do we live now? How do we build something that lasts? How do we create meaning in a world where death walks and civilization has fallen? These are the questions that will drive him forward, that will force him to become something more than a sheriff's deputy following laws that no longer exist, that will transform him from a man who trusted systems into a strategist who must create them. The collapse is complete. The old world is dead. What comes next will be written by those who remain by their choices, their sacrifices, their terrible wisdom learned in the ruins of everything humanity built. The story of survival has only just begun. There is a pattern in nature, a hierarchy that emerges whenever resources become scarce. Among wolves, among primates, among any social species facing scarcity, dominant structures form not through democracy, but through force. The strongest claim territory. The most aggressive control access to food and mates. It is efficient in its brutal way. It maintains order when cooperation alone cannot. But humans are more complex. We carry within us both the primate and the philosopher. We can recognize tyranny even as we submit to it. We can resent the strong even as we depend on them for protection. And eventually, inevitably, we rebel. The Quarry camp has a leader, though no one voted for him. Shane Walsh took command through action, organizing the escape from Atlanta, securing the quarry, establishing security protocols. In those first chaotic days, his decisiveness saved lives. People followed him because following meant survival. But now, weeks into this new reality, the camp has stabilized enough for people to notice something uncomfortable. Shane is not leading them. He is controlling them. Rick sees it immediately. The way Shane positions himself physically, always at the center, always elevated. The way he makes decisions without consultation. The way he speaks to Laurie with a possessiveness that goes beyond concern. Rick was Shane's partner once, his best friend, the man who saved his life during a shootout years ago. But that was another world. This Shane has been shaped by weeks of impossible decisions and the belief that only his strength stands between these people and death. There is tension between them from the moment of Rick's return, not spoken, not acknowledged openly, but present in every interaction. Shane told Laurie that Rick was dead. Whether this was a mercy sparing her from hoping or a strategy to claim what Shane wanted, Rick cannot know. Perhaps Shane himself does not know. Humans are skilled at justifying our desires as necessities. The camp watches this power struggle with anxiety. Two strong men, two visions of how to survive. Shane advocates hardness, strict rules, harsh punishments, the elimination of anything that weakens the group. Rick seeks balance, maintaining humanity alongside survival, building something worth surviving for. These are not just personality differences. They are philosophical oppositions about what kind of people they will become in this new world. The friction comes to a head over resources. Food is running low. Glenn's supply runs into Atlanta grow more dangerous as the dead concentrate in areas previously scavenged. The deer population near the quarry has been hunted out. Fish from the quarry pools are contaminated. The water source they depend on is slowly poisoning them. They need to move, to find new territory. But where? Every choice is laden with risk. Dale, the retired mechanic who owns the RV, suggests they head north. Winter is coming, the southern summer has been brutal, But the cold will bring different challenges. They need shelter, not just tents. They need renewable food sources. They need distance from Atlanta's teeming hordes. Shane rejects this without discussion. Moving means vulnerability on the road. The camp is defensible. They know the area. They should stay and intensify scavenging efforts. Push farther out. Take greater risks to bring back greater rewards. Rick proposes compromise. Send a scouting party to investigate options while the main group maintains the camp. Gather intelligence before committing. But Shane sees this as a challenge to his authority. The argument escalates. Voices rise. Others intervene before it becomes physical. But the damage is done. The camp has seen that their leaders disagree fundamentally. The unity that kept them alive is fracturing. That night, Shane approaches Laurie, privately, away from the camp. He speaks of his fears that Rick's optimism will get them killed, that hard choices require hard men, that she and Carl need someone who understands the reality of their situation. The conversation is manipulation disguised as concern. Shane is laying groundwork, preparing for the confrontation he sees as inevitable. Laurie recognizes this. She is not blind to Shane's feelings or his resentment of Rick's return, but she is also pragmatic. They are in a situation where alienating Shane could split the camp, and a divided camp is a dead camp. She navigates carefully, neither encouraging nor completely rejecting him. It is exhausting, this political dance over survival resources, where one of those resources is her. Then Carol's daughter Sophia goes missing. The child was playing at the edge of camp, still within the perimeter, still supposedly safe, but she wandered toward the creek and encountered two walkers drawn by the sound of the camp. She ran. The walkers followed. By the time her absence was noticed, she had vanished into the woods. The search consumes everything. Rick, Shane, Daryl Dixon, and others spread out in widening circles, calling her name, tracking signs. They find her doll. They find small footprints, but they do not find Sophia. The woods are vast. A child could hide anywhere, especially a terrified child trained to stay silent and still when danger approaches. Days pass. Carol is inconsolable. The camp dedicates resources they cannot spare to the search: manpower, time, ammunition for protection. Some begin to whisper that they should move on, that the girl is surely dead, that continuing endangers everyone. These whispers are logical, strategic, and utterly unbearable to speak aloud. Rick refuses to give up. Perhaps it is his training as a lawman: you do not abandon a missing child. Perhaps it is his own fear as a father that could be Carl lost in the woods. Perhaps it is something more fundamental about what kind of people they will become. If they abandon Sophia, what does that say about their humanity? What line have they crossed? This is when they receive a miracle, or what appears to be one. A man on horseback arrives at the quarry. Impossible. Anachronistic. This figure from another era riding through the apocalypse. He introduces himself as Otis, and he brings news. There is a farm owned by a man named Herschel Green, a veterinarian who has secured his property and established sustainability livestock, crops, clean water from a well, and they have not seen the dead in days. The farm is safe. More than that, they will help search for Sophia. They have horses for faster searching, medical supplies if she is found injured. Herschel is a man of faith and hospitality, and he will not turn away people in need. It seems too good to be true. In the old world, Rick would have been suspicious. But in this new reality, where every day brings fresh horror, the existence of a sanctuary feels like providence. The camp mobilizes. They pack their meager belongings and follow Otis to Herschel's farm, hoping that this is the answer they have been seeking. The farm is indeed remarkable. A white farmhouse surrounded by fields, fenced pastures with horses and cattle, a barn that speaks of generations of agricultural tradition. Herschel Green is in his 60s, dignified and kind, accompanied by his daughters Maggie and Beth, his son Sean, and a few others who found refuge here when the collapse came. Herschel's philosophy is simple. This outbreak is temporary. Medical science will find a cure. Order will be restored. In the meantime, his duty as a Christian is to maintain life, both his own family's and any he can help. The farm can support more people if managed carefully. There is enough for everyone if they work together. Rick wants to believe this. The farm feels like a step back toward civilization. There are beds, hot meals from the kitchen, chores that echo normalcy. Carl plays with the green children. Laurie cooks alongside Maggie. Dale works on repairing equipment. It is almost possible to pretend the world has not ended. But there are rules. Herschel's rules. No weapons in the house. No discussion of killing walkers. Herschel refuses to use that term, calls them sick people who deserve dignity. And most importantly, no one enters the barn. The barn. It sits at the edge of the property, doors chained shut, strange sounds emanating from within. The group notices but does not question they are guests. After all, dependent on Herschel's generosity. They respect his boundaries because they have nowhere else to go. The search for Sophia continues. They ride out daily, covering miles of countryside, calling her name. Daryl Dixon becomes particularly obsessed with the search, perhaps because he sees in Sophia's disappearance echoes of his own traumatic childhood, perhaps because finding her is something concrete he can accomplish in a world that offers few victories. He nearly dies in the effort, falling down a ravine and hallucinating his dead brother before dragging himself back to the farm with a walker's ear as a trophy. But Sophia remains lost. Weeks pass at the farm. The group integrates slowly into the Green family's routines. Glenn and Maggie develop a romance young, love blooming amid apocalypse, proving that humans will seek connection even in the darkest times. Dale and Herschel discuss philosophy and faith. Rick and Shane work security patrols, their tension unresolved but temporarily suppressed. Then Carl is shot. An accident. Otis was hunting deer and did not see the boy in the woods beyond. The bullet passes through the deer and into Carl's abdomen. It is a devastating injury, requiring immediate surgery. Herschel has veterinary skills but lacks equipment. They need medical supplies from a FEMA trailer at the local high school, surgical tools, anesthesia, blood supplies. Shane and Otis volunteer to retrieve them. It is a suicide mission. The high school is overrun with walkers, the supplies are in a secured trailer, and getting in and out alive requires speed and luck. But it is Carl's only chance. What happens at that high school is something Shane will never fully explain. They find the supplies, they are chased by a massive horde, and in the desperate escape, Shane makes a calculation. He shoots Otis in the leg, leaves him as bait for the walkers, escapes with the supplies while Otis is torn apart. Shane returns as a hero, saves Carl's life, collapses in exhaustion, says Otis died bravely so Shane could make it back. No one questions this story except Shane himself, who shaves his head that night as if trying to shed his former skin, trying to become someone who can live with what he has done. This is the mathematics of survival taken to its logical extreme. 2 men, 1 set of supplies, 1 child's life hanging in balance. Shane chose. He murdered Otis to save Carl, and by any ruthless calculus, it was the right decision. Carl lives. The group loses someone they barely knew rather than someone essential. Efficiency and cruelty become indistinguishable. Rick sees the change in Shane, but does not understand its source. Shane becomes harder, more volatile. His attempts to influence Laurie intensify. He begins openly questioning Rick's leadership decisions. The philosophical divide between them widens into a chasm. Then Glenn makes a discovery that changes everything. He has been asked to retrieve supplies from the barn, simple enough. But when he opens those chained doors, he finds horror. Walkers. dozens of them. Herschel has been collecting them, chaining them in the barn like animals in quarantine, waiting for the cure that will restore them to humanity. Among them familiar faces, Herschel's wife, his son, neighbors and friends, people he cannot bear to destroy because destroying them means accepting that they are truly gone. Herschel's faith has become pathology. His hope has become dangerous denial. Glenn tells the group. The revelation is explosive. They have been living meters away from dozens of walkers, sleeping peacefully while a horde was contained only by chains and Herschel's optimism. What if the barn doors had failed? What if the walkers had escaped during the night? Rick confronts Herschel, tries diplomacy, explains that these are not sick people but corpses, that no cure is coming, that keeping them is dangerous. Herschel refuses to listen. This is his land, his family, his decision. If Rick's group cannot accept that, they are free to leave. But where would they go? Winter is setting in. They have no other refuge. They are trapped between Herschel's delusion and the harsh reality beyond the farm's fences. Shane has no patience for this dilemma. He sees the solution: clearly clear the barn, kill the walkers, take control of the farm if necessary. Survival requires hard men making hard choices. He begins gathering support, speaking to Dale, to Andrea, to T-Dog, building his own coalition within the group. The situation deteriorates rapidly. Arguments erupt daily. Herschel demands they leave. Rick begs for more time to convince him. The two groups, Rick's survivors and Herschel's farmers, circle each other like wolves, cooperation dissolving into territorial aggression. Then Shane acts. He breaks open the barn doors, releases the walkers, forces the confrontation Herschel has been avoiding. The group has no choice but to defend themselves. They form a firing line and gun down the walkers as they shamble out into sunlight. Herschel watches his wife's corpse drop, his sons, his neighbors, the things he loved destroyed in systematic execution. It is brutal, it is traumatic, but it is also revealing. These walkers are not people. They do not recognize loved ones. They do not hesitate or show mercy. They are hunger given form, and putting them down is a necessity. The last walker emerges from the barn's darkness, small, child-sized, wearing the remains of a shirt the group recognizes. Sophia, Carol's daughter, the girl they searched for. She has been here all along, must have wandered onto the farm weeks ago, been bitten, turned, and been placed in the barn by Herschel's people who did not know she was the missing child. The search was always futile. Sophia died long ago, probably within hours of going missing. Everything since the hope, the effort, the resources spent, was illusion. Rick steps forward and shoots her. Has to. Carol cannot. The group cannot. So Rick performs this final mercy, and in doing so, accepts something profound about their new reality. There are no miracles. There is no providence. The universe is not cruel, but it is indifferent. You can do everything right and still lose. You can search and hope and pray, and the child you are looking for can be dead in a barn the entire time, and there is no meaning in it. No lesson except that hope itself can be a trap. The farm is shattered. Herschel disappears, goes to the town bar and drinks himself into numbness. Maggie is devastated by her father's breaking. The survivors are traumatized by the loss of Sophia and the horror of the barn. Shane feels vindicated but also isolated. He forced the necessary confrontation, but everyone hates him for it. Rick must rebuild from this wreckage, must somehow reconcile with Herschel, must convince him to let them stay despite everything, must address Shane's growing instability, must help Carol through her grief, must lead people who have just had their last comfortable illusions destroyed. He finds Herschel in town, drunk and suicidal, talks him back from the edge, makes promises they will respect his authority, follow his rules, contribute to the farm's work. They need each other. The farm needs the group's strength and skills. The group needs the farm's resources and shelter. Herschel agrees, reluctantly, not from forgiveness, but from pragmatism. The walkers are coming in greater numbers. The farm needs defenders, and perhaps, in helping others survive, he can find some purpose in a world that has taken everything he loved. They return to find the farm under attack. A small horde, drawn by the gunfire from the barn. The group defends, successfully working together, using strategy and coordination. It is a victory, but a hollow one, because now they understand the farm's vulnerability. The fences are not enough. The isolation is an illusion. The dead will always find them. Shane watches this and sees his moment. That night, he confronts Rick away from the camp, demands that Rick step down, claims Laurie and Carl need real protection, that the group needs ruthless leadership, that Rick's weakness will get everyone killed. The confrontation becomes physical. Shane draws his weapon, but Rick is faster. Or perhaps Rick has finally learned the lesson Shane has been teaching, that survival requires violence without hesitation. He shoots Shane, kills his best friend, does it to protect himself and his family and the group, does what he swore he would never do. Carl appears, has followed them, sees Shane begin to reanimate, demonstrating what some of them have begun to suspect. Everyone is infected. Death by any cause means you come back. Shane rises as a walker, and Carl shoots him. A child, killing to protect his father, losing innocence completely. This is what the world has made of them. They have become people who kill friends, who teach children to kill, who sacrifice everything soft and trusting to stay alive one more day. Rick realizes in that moment that he can never go back to who he was. The sheriff's deputy, who believed in law and justice and protecting people, is gone. What remains is something harder, more capable, but also less human. The farm has taught them brutal lessons. Resources create conflict. Hope can be weaponized. Leaders who cannot make terrible choices will be replaced by those who can, and no place, no matter how safe it seems, is safe forever. The coalition they built here is fragile, held together by need and fear rather than trust, but it is all they have, and so they continue, learning to survive in a world that offers no second chances and fewer mercies. The question is no longer whether they can maintain their humanity. The question is how much of it they can afford to keep. In the animal kingdom, territory means everything. A pride of lions defends its hunting grounds, not from sentiment, but from necessity. The land sustains them. Losing it means starvation. Holding it requires constant vigilance against rivals who would claim it for themselves. This is the calculus of survival: secure territory or die trying to find it. Humans are not so different. We simply build walls around what we claim and call it civilization. The farm burns. A horde arrives one evening, massive, unstoppable, drawn by some combination of sound and movement and the mysterious magnetism that pulls the dead toward the living. Hundreds of them, perhaps thousands. More walkers than the group has ever seen in one place, shuffling across the fields like a biblical plague. There is no defending against this. No amount of ammunition or strategy can stop such numbers. The farm's fences collapse under the weight of bodies. The barn ignites someone's desperate attempt to create a firebreak. The house is overrun. People scatter in panic, jumping into vehicles, fleeing on foot, separated in the chaos. Rick and Carl find themselves on the highway with Herschel. Glenn escapes with Maggie. Daryl rescues Carol on his motorcycle. Others scatter into the darkness. They have a planned rally point, the traffic jam on the interstate where Rick first encountered Glenn, but whether everyone will make it there is unknown. By dawn, most of the group has reconvened. Patricia is dead, taken by walkers in the evacuation. Jimmy too. Andrea is missing, separated during the flight, assumed lost. The RV is gone. Most of their supplies are gone. They have what they carried and nothing more. They are mobile again, vulnerable, back to the desperate scavenging existence they knew before the farm. Except now they are fewer and more traumatized, and winter is settling in with bitter cold. Rick leads them in circles through the Georgia countryside, searching for shelter, for safety, for anything that might serve as more than a temporary stop. They find houses all looted or occupied by walkers. They find stores stripped bare months ago. They find other survivors occasionally, but these encounters are tense, suspicious, sometimes violent. The world has taught everyone the same lesson. Trust is dangerous. Laurie is pregnant. This becomes clear as her body changes. The implications are staggering. Bringing a child into this world is an act of either profound hope or profound selfishness. The group will need to find somewhere stable before she gives birth. Somewhere with medical supplies and safety and the resources to care for an infant. It is Daryl who spots it. A prison. The West Georgia Correctional Facility, visible from the road, surrounded by double-layered fences and guard towers. A fortress designed to keep people in, which means it can keep walkers out. The group stops on a hillside overlooking the complex, studying it with exhausted hope. Rick sees immediately what this place represents. Not just shelter, but genuine security. The fences are intact. The guard towers provide elevation and sight lines. The buildings are concrete and steel, defensible against both walkers and human threats. The land inside includes fields that could be cultivated. If they can clear it, if they can secure it, this could be permanent. But it is occupied, not by survivors, by the dead. Walkers crowd the yards between the fences, more fill the cell blocks. The prison's population died where they were locked, inmates and guards alike. All turned, all still contained by the bars that were meant to hold them. This is no simple scavenging run. This is a military operation. They must systematically clear and secure a facility designed for maximum security, doing it with limited ammunition, exhausted people, and no margin for error. One mistake means someone dies. One unlocked door means the dead flood in. One moment of inattention means disaster. Rick becomes something new in this operation. Not a sheriff's deputy, not a group, leader negotiating consensus. A commander. He assigns roles based on capability. Daryl as advanced scout, Glenn for speed and agility, Maggie as backup, Herschel providing medical support, T-Dog watching their flanks. Everyone has a function. Everyone understands the stakes. They start with the outer yard, using the fences to channel walkers into kill zones. Spears through chain link conserving ammunition. Methodical, exhausting, dangerous work. Hours of it, then days. They sleep in brief shifts, always with guards posted. They ration food and water carefully. They work with the grim determination of people who understand this is their last chance. The outer yard is cleared. They move into the inner courtyard, tighter quarters, more dangerous. But progress, cell by cell, door by door, they reclaim the prison from the dead. Rick finds a cafeteria with canned goods still sealed, a library with books, an infirmary with medical supplies, gardens overgrown but containing seeds. This place can sustain them if they can hold it. Then, tragedy. T-Dog is bitten during the clearing of C Block. He hides it, knows what it means, but wants to help secure the area before he turns. Dies, covering Carol's escape from a walker ambush. Becomes the sacrifice that purchases their safety. And Laurie, during the chaos of clearing the prison, she goes into labor too early, too sudden. Carl is with her, and Maggie. No doctor, no equipment. just a young woman trying to deliver a baby in a prison boiler room while walkers hammer on doors nearby. The delivery is catastrophic. Something tears. Laurie hemorrhages. She is dying, and she knows it. She makes Maggie promise save the baby. Cut her open if necessary. Do not let her child die with her. Maggie, barely trained, terrified, performs a cesarean with a knife. Pulls out a tiny crying infant, a girl who should not have survived but does. Laurie bleeds out, whispers goodbye to Carl, and dies. Carl must shoot her, must put down his own mother before she reanimates. He is 13 years old, and he performs this terrible duty because someone must, and he will not let anyone else carry that burden. Rick is clearing another section when he hears the news. His wife is dead. He has a daughter he has never met. Carl killed Laurie himself. Rick's breakdown is total. He collapses, screams, becomes unreachable. The grief and guilt and horror overwhelm everything else. He wanders the prison in a daze, hearing phantom phone calls from the dead, barely functioning, but the group cannot afford his collapse. So others step forward. Daryl finds formula for the baby. Glenn takes command of the ongoing security operations. Herschel counsels Rick patiently back to functionality. Michonne arrives, a stranger who appears at the fences carrying a katana and 2 armless walker pets on chains, traumatized and lethal, and exactly what they need. The group adapts. They establish routines, guard rotations in the towers, agricultural work in the fields, scavenging runs for supplies. The prison becomes more than shelter, it becomes a community. They have space to breathe, room to grieve, the possibility of something beyond just surviving to the next day. But territory attracts attention. Consider how power operates in a collapsed world. Without law, without currency, without the complex systems that mediate conflict, power becomes elemental. It is control over resources, food, weapons, shelter. It is control over people through fear or loyalty or desperation. It is the willingness to use violence to take what others have. 30 miles away, another community has formed. Woodbury, a small town that was fortified early in the outbreak, walls constructed around a central area, survivors gathered from the surrounding region. It appears to be a success, lights powered by generators, food gardens, even entertainment. A functioning society maintained through the leadership of a man who calls himself the governor. But Woodbury is not what it seems. The Governor Philip Blake, though few know his real name, rules through a combination of charisma and terror. He provides for his people, keeps them safe, gives them a sense of normalcy with community dinners and entertainment. But this stability is purchased through brutality. Woodbury's prosperity comes from raiding other groups, taking their supplies, conscripting their able-bodied members, killing those who resist. The governor maintains control through spectacle. He stages fights, humans versus walkers, in an arena made from the town square. Gruesome entertainment that reinforces his power while desensitizing his people to violence. He keeps walker heads in aquarium tanks, studying them, trying to understand them. His grip on sanity is questionable, but his grip on power is absolute. When the governor's people encounter Michonne in the woods, they make a fatal error. They try to capture her. She escapes, killing several of them, taking their weapons. She makes her way to the prison, pursued. This is how Woodbury learns of the prison's existence. The governor sees opportunity. The prison is everything Woodbury is not genuinely secure, with agricultural potential, defensible for generations. He wants it. And what the governor wants, he takes. His first approach is diplomatic. He arrives with a small party, unarmed, offering trade and alliance. Rick, suspicious but hopeful, negotiates. Perhaps they can coexist, share resources, defend each other against the dead. It seems possible, but the governor is studying them, counting their numbers, assessing their weapons, identifying their weaknesses. He sees that they are few, that they are exhausted from the clearing operation, that they have a newborn infant who limits their mobility. He sees prey. Glenn and Maggie are captured during a supply run, taken to Woodbury, interrogated about the prison's defences. The governor uses both psychological pressure and physical torture, beats Glenn, threatens Maggie with sexual assault, tries to break them into revealing everything about the prison group, but Glenn and Maggie are stronger than he anticipates. They resist, give minimal information, protect their people even under torture. Eventually, Michonne, who has history with Woodbury, who escaped from there carrying knowledge of the governor's atrocities, guides Rick and Daryl in a rescue operation. The rescue is successful but costly. They extract Glenn and Maggie, but the governor loses his daughter, the walker he kept chained in his apartment, the remnant of his dead child that he could not let go. Michonne takes revenge by destroying this last piece of his humanity. The governor's response is total war. He rallies Woodbury, tells them the prison group are bandits, murderers, threats to everything they have built. He gathers fighters, collects weapons, plans an assault that will crush the prison group and claim the facility for Woodbury's expansion. Rick's group prepares for siege. They have numbers barely a dozen fighters. They have ammunition limited. They have experience hard won through months of survival. But they are defending against a force 3 times their size with military weapons and tactical training. The first assault comes at dawn. Trucks smash through the outer fence. Armed fighters pour into the courtyard, expecting to overwhelm through superior numbers. But Rick has prepared. He has established kill zones, hidden defenders in the guard towers, set traps throughout the yard. The prison group fights with desperate coordination, turning the terrain to their advantage. The Woodbury fighters are shocked by the resistance. They expected frightened survivors, not hardened defenders. They face suppressing fire from multiple directions, step on improvised spike traps, find that every approach is covered by overlapping fields of fire. They are bleeding people, literally and metaphorically, in an operation that was supposed to be a simple conquest. The governor orders retreat, regroups. He has lost 1/3 of his force in that first failed assault. His people are questioning the operation. Why are they attacking other survivors instead of fighting the dead? What gives them the right to take someone else's home? But the governor cannot accept defeat. His authority is based on being the strong man who protects them. Losing to a smaller group undermines everything. He plans a second assault, larger, more brutal, with the intention of completely destroying the prison group rather than merely displacing them. Rick knows they cannot survive another attack, so he makes a desperate choice: counterattack. Hit Woodbury while they are preparing for the next assault. Strike at their base, destroy their supplies, force them to defend rather than attack. It is risky. It divides their already small force, but doing nothing guarantees destruction. The raid on Woodbury is a nightmare of close-quarters combat. Rick's team infiltrates at night, sets fires, destroys the Governor's Walker Arena, releases smoke bombs that create chaos. The message is clear: you are not safe either. War is mutually destructive. Peace is the only viable option. But the governor does not want peace. He wants conquest. He executes his own people who question him, consolidates power through purges, prepares for a final, total assault that will end the prison group forever. The second assault is everything the first was not: coordinated, methodical, using armor and explosives. The Woodbury forces breach the outer fence with vehicles, then the inner fence with shaped charges. They pour into the prison complex with overwhelming force. Rick's group falls back to the cell blocks, fights a desperate defensive action. Maggie is wounded, Beth nearly killed. Herschel trapped in a collapsed section. They are losing, being pushed back room by room, corridor by corridor. The prison they fought so hard to claim is being taken from them. Then something shifts. The Woodbury fighters, common people pressed into service. Not soldiers, begin to break. They see their friends dying for a building. They question why they are killing survivors instead of walkers. Some refuse orders. Others actively sabotage the assault. The governor's authority cracks. The assault collapses into chaos. The governor, enraged by the betrayal, opens fire on his own people, massacres those who retreated, proves himself to be the monster some suspected. The few survivors flee, abandoning him. The great army of Woodbury dissolves into scattered refugees. But the damage is done. The prison's fences are breached. Walkers are flooding in from the compromised perimeter. The cell blocks that were safe are now vulnerable. The agricultural fields are trampled and burned. The infrastructure they spent months building is destroyed. Rick makes the hardest decision of his leadership. They cannot hold the prison, not against the Walker influx. Not with their injuries and depleted ammunition. They must abandon it, must return to being mobile survivors, must give up everything they built here. The evacuation is chaos. They grab what they can carry: weapons, food, medical supplies, the baby. They pile into vehicles and flee as walkers overrun the prison yards. Some get separated in the escape. The group splinters different vehicles, heading different directions, planning to regroup but uncertain if they will. Rick looks back as they drive away, sees the prison being consumed by the dead, sees months of work undone in hours, understands something profound about territory in this new world. Fixed positions are traps. What you defend becomes a target. The more you have, the more others want to take it. Safety is an illusion that makes you vulnerable. The only true security is mobility, the ability to leave before the inevitable catastrophe arrives. But he also understands what they gained here. They proved they could organize, could defend, could build, something worth fighting for. The prison may be lost, but the knowledge of what they accomplished remains. They are not just survivors anymore. They are a community, a tribe, something that can persist even without walls. The lesson of the prison is written in blood and loss. You cannot hold territory forever, but you can hold on to people. And people, in the end, are the only territory that matters. They scatter into the Georgia wilderness, separately but bound by shared purpose. The prison campaign is over, but the war for survival continues. Movement is life, stasis is death. In the natural world, migration is survival strategy. Herds follow seasonal rains, birds traverse continents seeking warmth. Even predators range across vast territories rather than defending fixed dens. They understand instinctively what humans must relearn, that in uncertain environments, flexibility trumps fortification. The group scatters after the prison falls, not by choice, but by necessity. In the chaos of evacuation, vehicles head in different directions. Some carry multiple survivors. Others hold single individuals fleeing alone into the wilderness. They have a planned rally point, a highway intersection 30 miles north, but reaching it requires navigating walker-infested territory without maps, without communication, without any guarantee that others survived. Rick finds himself with Carl and Michonne, just the three of them. Carl is shutting down emotionally, having killed his mother, having survived the assault, having lost the only real home he has known in this new world. He speaks little, shows no emotion, becomes mechanical in his movements and responses. Rick recognizes this as trauma but has no tools to address it. He is barely functioning himself, operating on pure survival instinct. Michonne becomes essential. She knows how to move through walker-dense areas. Her technique of using armless, jawless walkers as camouflage teaching Rick something fundamental about the dead. They hunt by smell and sound primarily. If you mask those signals, you become invisible. It is gruesome, but effective. She also knows small unit tactics, having survived alone for months before finding the prison. They travel light and fast, sleep in brief shifts, avoid roads where possible, subsist on scavenged food and creek water. It is exhausting, but it keeps them alive. The mobility that seemed like weakness compared to the prison's walls now proves to be their greatest advantage. They are hard to track, hard to trap. They can abandon positions instantly if threatened. Glenn and Maggie take a different route. They have Sasha and Bob Stooges with them, newcomers to the group who survived the prison assault. 4 people in a car with half a tank of gas and no clear destination. They drive until the fuel runs out, then walk. The relationship between Glenn and Maggie becomes their anchor. They married at the prison, a simple ceremony but deeply meaningful. Now they face the question of whether love means anything in a world trying to kill them. Bob is struggling. He is an alcoholic, sober through necessity at the prison but now craving escape from the horror. He finds bottles in abandoned houses, hides his drinking, becomes a liability just when the group needs everyone at peak capability. Sasha notices but says nothing, hoping he will self-correct before it becomes critical. They find shelter in a veterinary clinic, decent security, supplies they can use, water from a well behind the building. It seems viable for a few days' rest. But Bob's drinking attracts trouble. He drops a bottle, the sound carries, walkers converge. They must abandon the clinic in the middle of the night, losing half their supplies in the hasty evacuation. Daryl and Beth end up together by chance. She grabbed onto his motorcycle during the escape. Now they are bound by circumstance, a hardened tracker in his 30s and a sheltered farm girl barely out of her teens. They should have nothing in common. But isolation creates unexpected bonds. Beth represents something Daryl has never allowed himself hope. She sees beauty in small things, picks flowers, sings softly while they walk, maintains faith that there is still good in the world worth preserving. Daryl has survived by assuming the worst, by maintaining emotional distance, by never depending on anyone. Beth challenges this worldview simply by existing alongside him. They find a funeral home that has been converted into a way station. There's someone left supplies, a guest book asking survivors to note their passage, even prepared meals in the kitchen. It is a gesture of humanity in the wasteland, evidence that not everyone has become a monster. They stay for days, the longest period of safety either has known since the prison. Daryl begins to open up, tells Beth about his childhood, the abuse, the neglect, his brother Merle's death. She listens without judgment, offers perspective from her own losses. They play piano together, awkwardly, joyfully. For a brief moment, they are not survivors but simply people sharing space. Then the funeral home is surrounded, not by walkers, by humans, a group that has been watching, waiting for the occupants to relax their guard. Beth is taken while Daryl is outside. He returns to find her gone, the door open, a car speeding away. He pursues on foot but cannot catch them, loses her trail within miles. The loss devastates him. He wanders alone until he encounters a group called the Claimers Men, who have adopted a brutal philosophy of might makes right. Their rules are simple. If you see something and claim it first, it is yours. Challenge a claim, and you fight to the death. It is social Darwinism reduced to its basest form. Daryl travels with them because alone he will die. But he hates what they represent. Hates himself for compromising. These men are rapists and murderers. They take what they want without conscience, and they are tracking. Someone following signs along the road, hunting prey Daryl does not yet recognize. Tyrese ends up with Carol and the baby Judith, Rick's daughter, less than a year old. Also with them are Lizzie and Mika, 2 young sisters orphaned by the prison assault. 4 people, 2 of them children, 1 an infant. It is the most vulnerable possible configuration. They cannot fight effectively, cannot move quickly, cannot take risks. Carol becomes fiercely protective. She has lost her own daughter, Sophia. Will not lose Judith too. She rations their supplies carefully, teaches the girls survival skills, makes the hard decisions about which risks to take. Tyrese defers to her judgment. He is strong but gentle, more suited to defense than aggressive survival. But Lizzie is not well. She does not understand what walkers are, thinks they are still people, just different. She feeds them rats through fences, names them, talks to them. Carol tries to explain the reality, but Lizzie resists. Her mental state is deteriorating under the stress of constant survival. They find a house in the woods. Isolated. Secure enough for a few days. Carol goes hunting, leaving Tyrese with the children. When she returns, she finds horror. Lizzie has killed Mika, stabbed her own sister, was about to kill Judith too, to prove that people come back and are still themselves. Carol understands immediately. Lizzie is a danger to everyone. She will kill again, believing she is helping. There is no facility to treat her, no medication to stabilize her, no therapist to counsel her. In the old world, there would be options. In this world, there is only one solution. Carol takes Lizzie into the field, tells her to look at the flowers, a calming phrase she used with Sophia, and shoots her, executes a child, because that child will otherwise murder. It is perhaps the most terrible decision anyone in the group has made, the most irrefutable proof that the world has changed beyond recognition. Tyrese is shattered, cannot accept what Carol did, cannot deny that it was necessary. They bury the girls side by side and continue traveling, barely speaking, bound by trauma too profound for words. All these scattered groups are moving toward the same destination, a place called Terminus. They find signs along the railway tracks: sanctuary for all, community for all. Those who arrive survive. Maps showing the location, promises of safety, food and shelter. Rick's group sees the signs first, debates whether to trust them. Rick is suspicious, remembers the false promise of the CDC, the compromised safety of the farm, the lost security of the prison. Every sanctuary has proven temporary or false. Why would this be different? But they need supplies, need to reconnect with the others, need some destination rather than aimless wandering. So they approach cautiously, with weapons ready, with escape routes planned. Terminus appears legitimate, a compound built from an old railway terminus. High walls, guard towers, fields under cultivation, people working openly, apparently unafraid. A woman named Mary greets them warmly, offers food, offers orientation to the community. It seems real. Glenn's group arrives separately, then Daryl having escaped the claimers, then others. The reunion is emotional people who thought each other dead finding survival against improbable odds. They gather in Terminus's courtyard, eating from plates Mary provides, beginning to believe that perhaps this time the sanctuary is genuine. Rick notices things that do not align. Too many bones in the burning pit, clothing that looks familiar, a riot gear vest like the one Glenn wore, a poncho like Maggie's. Personal items that should not be here unless their owners died here. He begins to suspect. The trap closes with coordinated precision, gunfire directed at their feet, herding them, corridors that channel them toward a specific destination. Terminus is not a sanctuary, it is an abattoir. The people here have solved the food scarcity problem through the ultimate taboo. They are cannibals. They lure survivors in with promises of safety, then butcher them systematically. The sanctuary signs are hunting bait. Rick's group is forced into a train car, a cattle car with reinforced walls, locked inside, waiting to be processed like livestock. The trap was perfect. They walked in willingly, let themselves be disarmed, trusted the appearance of civilization. But Rick has learned from every previous failure. He has hidden weapons on his body, has cache points marked outside the fence from their initial reconnaissance, has trained his people for exactly this scenario. They may be trapped, but they are not helpless. They're going to feel pretty stupid when they find out, Rick says in the darkness of the boxcar. Find out what? Comes the reply. They're screwing with the wrong people. Carol provides their salvation. She was approaching Terminus separately when she saw the trap close. Rather than surrender, she adapts, uses the Walker horde outside Terminus's walls as a weapon, sets off fireworks to draw them toward the compound, then breaches the fence with explosive charges stolen from a supply cache. Walkers pour into Terminus, hundreds of them. The defenders must choose contain the prisoners or fight the dead. They choose survival, abandoning the locked train car to defend the perimeter. Rick's group breaks out in the confusion, arms themselves from the Terminus armory, begins a systematic elimination of their captors. The violence is extreme. Rick has evolved from lawman to something darker. He slaughters the Terminus leadership with cold efficiency. No arrests, no mercy, no questions asked. These people ate children. They have forfeited their right to live. He executes them, one by one, then burns the compound. The group escapes into the woods as Terminus collapses behind them. They have supplies now, weapons, each other, but they are also traumatized by how close they came to being consumed, by what they did to survive, by the depths of human degradation the world now permits. They walk together through the forest, a larger group than before, reunited but changed. Daryl and Carol embrace two damaged people finding comfort. Glenn and Maggie hold hands, love persisting against everything. Rick carries Judith, a father protecting the fragile future. Michonne walks beside Carl, found family replacing blood. They are mobile again. No destination, no plan beyond survive today and tomorrow and the day after. They have learned that sanctuary is illusion, that walls breed complacency, that the only reliable defense is the ability to leave before threats can develop. But they have also learned something more valuable. That community is not defined by location but by bonds between people. That the group is stronger together than separated. That trust carefully given, constantly maintained, is the foundation of survival. Abraham Ford appears at their campfire one evening, a soldier with a mission. He has a scientist, Eugene Porter, who claims to know what caused the outbreak, who claims there is a cure, who needs to reach Washington, D.C., where laboratory facilities remain operational. He needs help getting there, needs fighters who can keep Eugene alive through hostile territory. Rick is skeptical. Another promise of salvation, another destination that will probably disappoint. But what else do they have? Aimless wandering? Eventual starvation? At least this mission provides purpose. They agree. We'll escort Eugene to Washington. We'll protect him. We'll chase this thread of hope because humans need goals beyond mere survival. We need to believe that our actions matter, that we are moving towards something rather than just away from danger. The march toward Washington begins. They are mobile operators now, light and fast, trusting no fixed position, using guerrilla tactics learned through hard experience. They travel at night, when possible, scavenge efficiently, avoid confrontation with both walkers and humans unless necessary. But the world keeps testing them, keeps presenting impossible choices, and they keep adapting, keep surviving, keep moving forward, because the alternative is surrender to the wasteland. The guerrilla survival phase teaches them their most valuable lesson, that resilience comes not from walls but from adaptability, not from territory but from cohesion, not from having a home but from being one. They are not looking for sanctuary anymore. They have become it. A mobile tribe carrying civilization forward one difficult mile at a time. And that, perhaps, is the only sanctuary that ever truly existed. Power, in its essence, is the capacity to shape outcomes. In nature, power concentrates alpha predators, control territories, dominant males claim breeding rights, strong individuals access resources first. But among humans, power becomes more complex. It is not merely strength but organization, not just violence but the structures that legitimize it. The ability to convince others that your authority is natural, inevitable, necessary. The march to Washington reveals a truth that Rick's group has been avoiding. Eugene Porter is a fraud. There is no cure. There never was. He invented the story to secure protection. He is a coward who weaponized hope, trading false promises for survival. When the truth emerges, when Eugene admits his deception, after leading them hundreds of miles, Abraham nearly beats him to death. The group fractures emotionally. They have walked through hell believing they were working towards something meaningful, that their suffering had purpose. Now they understand it was all illusion, just another false sanctuary, another broken promise in a world that offers nothing but entropy. They are stranded in rural Virginia, exhausted and directionless, when Aaron finds them. He approaches carefully, hands visible, speaking softly. He has been watching them, tracking their movements, assessing their capabilities. He represents a community called Alexandria, a planned neighborhood in suburban DC that was fortified early in the outbreak. They have walls, infrastructure, sustainability, and they are recruiting. Rick's response is immediate suspicion. Every invitation has been a trap. The CDC exploded. The farm burned. The prison fell. Terminus 8 people. Why would this be different? Aaron might be bait. Alexandria might be another Woodbury Raiders disguised as saviors. But Aaron persists, shows them photographs of Alexandria, provides maps, offers to let them approach on their own terms, scout the perimeter, and make their own assessment. He is not demanding trust, he is offering evidence and letting them decide. The group debates. Some want to believe, others advocate avoiding all communities. Rick's position is pragmatic. They need to investigate but assume danger. They approach Alexandria ready to fight or flee. What they find challenges their assumptions. Alexandria is real. 20-foot walls constructed from steel panels, solar panels providing electricity, houses with running water from a functional well system, gardens producing food, workshop facilities, a medical clinic. Approximately 40 residents living in relative comfort and safety. It is the most advanced community they have encountered. Not survival, actual quality of life. Children playing in streets. Couples living in houses. People performing specialized jobs rather than everyone fighting constantly for survival. It is civilization, or the closest approximation to it they have seen in years. The leader is Deanna Monroe, a former congresswoman who organized Alexandria's residents during the initial outbreak. She conducts video interviews with Rick's group, asking about their experiences, their capabilities, their willingness to integrate. She is assessing them as they assess her. Rick sees immediately what Deanna wants. Alexandria has infrastructure, but lacks hardness. These people have been protected by walls for so long they have forgotten how to fight. They are soft. Their security is inadequate. Their weapons training is minimal. They have survived through isolation and luck, but both are running out. Deanna sees in Rick's group what Alexandria needs: fighters, survivors who have faced everything and endured, people who can teach her community how to defend itself. She offers them houses, jobs, integration into Alexandria's social structure. She needs them more than they need her, though she would never admit this explicitly. The group accepts, but Rick establishes rules. They keep their weapons, they maintain their own security protocols. They watch everyone for signs of threat. Trust will be earned slowly, if at all. Alexandria may be genuine, but the world has taught them that betrayal is always possible. The integration is difficult. Alexandria's residents view Rick's group as dangerous savages. They whisper about the violence evident in their eyes, the casual way they carry weapons, the paranoia that keeps them checking corners and exits. Rick's people see Alexandria's residents as naive children playing house while the world burns. Conflict is inevitable. A man named Pete Anderson is Alexandria's surgeon. He is also an alcoholic who beats his wife Jessie and son Ron. In the old world, there would be intervention, law enforcement, social services, divorce courts. In Alexandria, Deanna refuses to address it because Pete's medical skills are irreplaceable. One doctor versus one abused family. The utilitarian calculus is cold but clear. Rick cannot accept this. He confronts Pete, offers to kill him, argues to Deanna that maintaining civility is not worth protecting a monster. But this challenges the fundamental philosophy of Alexandria that they are rebuilding society, not just surviving, that justice must be more than summary execution, that they are better than the wasteland outside. The confrontation escalates to violence. Rick and Pete fight in the street. Others try to intervene. In the chaos, Deanna's husband Reg is killed, his throat slashed by accident during the brawl. Deanna's careful neutrality collapses. She orders Rick to execute Pete. The surgeon is marched outside the walls and shot while his family watches. Alexandria learns its first hard lesson. Walls do not prevent moral complexity. Safety creates its own problems, and sometimes survival requires becoming what you hoped you would never be. But external threats prove more challenging than internal ones. The saviors are first encountered on a supply run. Daryl, Abraham, and Sasha meet a group that demands they surrender everything. "Your stuff is now our stuff," they explain casually. It is organized robbery backed by credible threat. The saviors are numerous, well-armed, operating across a vast territory, and they serve someone called Negan. Rick's group kills these saviors rather than submit. It seems like a victory asserting that Alexandria will not be prey, but it is actually a catastrophic miscalculation. Because the saviors are not random raiders, they are the enforcement arm of a regional power structure, and attacking them means war with an enemy Rick does not yet understand. Negan has built an empire. The Sanctuary, his base, controls multiple communities through a protection racket. Each community provides regular tribute, food, supplies, weapons, labor. In exchange, the saviors protect them from walkers and other threats. It is feudalism reconstructed in the apocalypse. Negan as overlord, communities as vassals. Resistance met with overwhelming violence. The system is brilliant in its brutality. Negan takes half of everything each community produces. This keeps them dependent, never accumulating enough resources to challenge him. He rotates his saviors through different territories, preventing local allegiances. He uses exemplary violence, horrific public executions to maintain fear. He positions himself as reasonable, even friendly, while wielding absolute power. The Hilltop community illustrates the system perfectly. They are farmers primarily, producing food in exchange for saviors' protection. Their leader, Gregory, is a weak politician who has surrendered all autonomy to avoid conflict. When Rick's group visits Hilltop on a diplomatic mission, they learn the scope of Negan's control. Rick sees opportunity. If they eliminate Negan, they liberate multiple communities, create an alliance that can resist future threats, transform regional power dynamics from feudal extraction to mutual cooperation. It is ambitious, but Alexandria needs allies, and this mission can purchase them. They strike at an outpost, a savior base housing dozens of fighters. The assault is methodical. Rick's group has become professional soldiers through experience. They infiltrate at night, clear the facility room by room, execute sleeping saviors to prevent alarm. It is cold-blooded murder of unconscious people, but Rick justifies it as preemptive self-defense. The operation succeeds tactically but fails strategically. They killed one outpost, but Negan has dozens, and he has learned that Alexandria exists and has hostile intent. The retaliation is inevitable. Negan's response is surgical. He does not attack Alexandria directly, too costly, too destructive of the very resources he wants. Instead, he captures Rick's people during a supply run, surrounds them at night with overwhelming force, brings them to their knees in a clearing outside Alexandria. Then Negan himself appears. He is not what they expected. Not a brutal warlord, but something more unsettling, charismatic, funny, theatrical. He carries a baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire that he calls Lucille. He explains his philosophy while smiling. They killed his people. This cannot stand unpunished. But he is reasonable. He will only kill one or two of them. Not everyone. Just enough to make the point. He chooses Glenn and Abraham, beats them to death with Lucille while the group watches, restrained and helpless. The violence is extreme, heads pulped beyond recognition, bodies reduced to meat. It is systematic terrorism designed to break resistance through psychological trauma. Negan explains the new reality. Alexandria now works for him. They will provide half of everything they produce. His saviors will collect regularly. Resistance means death. Not quick execution, but creative torture followed by death. He is not destroying them. He is domesticating them. Then he leaves, taking their weapons, but letting them live. The message is clear: you are alive because I permit it. Your community exists at my pleasure. Submit or die. The walk back to Alexandria is silent. They carry Glenn's and Abraham's bodies. Maggie is destroyed, her husband murdered in front of her while she was pregnant with his child. Rick is broken, his confidence in leadership shattered by this absolute defeat. The group understands they have entered a new phase of survival. They are not independent survivors anymore. They are subjects of an empire. Negan's visits to Alexandria are calculated humiliation. He takes whatever he wants, insults them, makes clear that their lives are his property. He is training them to submit reflexively, to internalize their powerlessness. Some Alexandria residents advocate acceptance, give Negan what he wants, survive by cooperation. Others want resistance but see no path to victory. Rick begins planning rebellion, secretly, carefully. He understands that Negan's system has weaknesses. The saviors are numerous but spread across vast territory. The communities they control are prisoners, not allies. If those communities united, they would outnumber the saviors substantially. He makes contact with Hilltop, then with the Kingdom, another community led by a former zookeeper named Ezekiel who has established a theatrical monarchy, complete with a tiger. Then, with Oceanside, a hidden community of women who lost their men to the saviors and have been hiding ever since. Each community has been defeated individually, but together they represent a coalition that could challenge Negan's dominance. The question is whether they can trust each other, whether they can coordinate action across distances, whether they can accept the casualties that resistance will require. The preparation is painstaking: smuggling weapons, training fighters, establishing communication networks, planning coordinated strikes against savior outposts. Rick is building an army from scattered communities that have been systematically terrorized into submission. Maggie becomes crucial. Her leadership at Hilltop, she has effectively taken control from the weak Gregory anchors the coalition. Ezekiel provides fighters from the Kingdom. Oceanside reluctantly provides weapons. Alexandria serves as strategic headquarters. The alliance is fragile but functional. The war begins with coordinated strikes, multiple communities attacking different savior outposts simultaneously, overwhelming localized forces before they can coordinate response. It is guerrilla warfare scaled up, hit and fade, never allowing Negan to bring his full force against any single target. The saviors are shocked. They have grown complacent from easy dominance. They face organized resistance for the first time. Their outposts fall one after another. Their supply lines are cut. Their communication is disrupted. The empire that seemed invincible reveals itself to be overextended and vulnerable. Negan adapts. He consolidates forces at the Sanctuary, turns his base into a fortress, challenges the coalition to assault it directly or accept stalemate. Rick understands this is the decisive moment. If they cannot break the Sanctuary, the war becomes a prolonged siege that favors Negan's greater resources. The plan is audacious. Use a walker horde as a siege weapon. Rick's people have learned to herd walkers, to direct them using sound and barriers. They lead a massive horde, thousands of walkers, directly to the Sanctuary, breach the walls, force the saviors to fight both the dead and the coalition simultaneously. The siege is brutal. Savior defenses hold initially. They pick off walkers from elevated positions, but the horde is relentless. It presses against fences until they collapse. It pours into courtyards and buildings. The saviors must abandon positions to avoid being overwhelmed. Inside the Sanctuary, morale collapses. The workers' people forced into servitude realize Negan cannot protect them. Some rebel openly, others simply stop fighting. The edifice of fear that maintained Negan's control crumbles when he can no longer guarantee either rewards or punishments. The Sanctuary falls not through assault but through internal collapse. The workers open gates for the coalition. Negan's lieutenants surrender rather than die pointlessly. The great fortress becomes a prison for its own defenders, but Negan himself escapes. He is too valuable a symbol to capture. Rick pursues him, catches him in one-on-one confrontation, has the opportunity to kill him to end the war with summary execution. Negan even invites it, taunting Rick to prove they are the same. Rick chooses otherwise. He defeats Negan, but takes him prisoner, declares that the war is over, but the peace will be built on justice, not revenge, that they are creating something better than what existed before. That civilization means trials and prisons, not just executions in the dirt. It is controversial. Maggie is furious. Her husband's murderer lives while Glenn is dead. Daryl questions whether mercy toward Negan makes sense. Others argue that keeping him alive risks future escape and retaliation. But Rick insists. Because the war was never just about defeating Negan, it was about proving they could build something that transcends the wasteland's brutality, that they are not just warlords fighting for temporary dominance, but communities building lasting structures. The coalition solidifies into a formal alliance. Trade agreements, mutual defense pacts, a charter outlining relationships between communities. It is crude, far from the governmental structures of the old world, but it is progress. Multiple communities cooperating through agreement rather than coercion. Alexandria, Hilltop, the Kingdom, and Oceanside become nodes in a network. They share resources, rotate defenders, support each other's agriculture and manufacturing. They are building regional stability from the ground up. But the victory is costly. Hundreds dead, communities damaged, trust strained. And the presence of Negan in Alexandria's makeshift jail is a constant reminder that peace is fragile, that power dynamics can shift, that the empire they defeated was built by someone not fundamentally different from themselves. Rick understands now what leadership in this world requires, not just tactical skill or physical courage, but the ability to build coalitions, to negotiate between competing interests, to balance justice with pragmatism, to create structures that outlast individual leaders. The multi-community alliance is not the end of struggle. It is merely a new phase, but it represents something profound that even in collapse, humans can cooperate. That communities need not be zero-sum competitors, but can achieve mutual benefit through coordination. The question that haunts Rick as he looks across the allied communities is whether this peace can last, whether they have created something resilient or merely delayed the inevitable return to violence, whether civilization can be rebuilt or if they are just sophisticated survivors pretending otherwise. The answer, he suspects, will be written by whatever comes next. In nature, mimicry is survival strategy. The harmless snake that displays colors of venomous species, the insect that resembles a leaf or twig, the predator that adopts the appearance of prey. Evolution rewards those who can hide in plain sight, who can move through hostile environments by seeming to belong there. It is deception refined across millions of years into instinct. Humans invented their own forms of camouflage, but we forgot that in extreme conditions, adaptation can become grotesque. The peace following Negan's defeat lasts 18 months. The communities establish routines, trade flourishes, children are born, agriculture expands. There are disputes, resource allocation, boundary definitions, individual crimes, but these are managed through councils and negotiation. The alliance is working. Civilization is rebuilding. Then people start disappearing. Not from walker attacks, those have become routine, manageable. Perimeter defenses are refined. Everyone knows the protocols. These disappearances are different. Experienced survivors vanishing from areas thought secure. Search parties finding no bodies, no signs of struggle, just absence where competent people should be. The first bodies appear as warnings, heads on pikes marking a boundary no one authorized, a border drawn in blood and horror, 10 heads, people from all the communities, Alexandria, Hilltop, the Kingdom. The message is clear, but its author unknown. Cross this line and die. Among the heads is Enid Maggie's adopted surrogate daughter, and Tara, a long-time survivor from the prison days, Henry Ezekiel's adoptive son. The loss is devastating, but more unsettling is the question of who did this. What group has been operating undetected in territory the communities thought they controlled? Carol becomes obsessed with finding the culprits. Henry was her responsibility. She was training him, protecting him. His death is her failure. She scouts beyond the boundary markers, looking for tracks, for camps, for any evidence of who these killers are. Daryl joins her. They have always worked well together, two damaged people who understand each other without needing words. They track for days, find evidence of large groups moving through the forest but leaving minimal traces. The skill required is extraordinary. These are not amateur survivors. Then they encounter something impossible, a herd of walkers moving through the forest. Normal enough, except these walkers are organized. They move with purpose, rather than random shambling. And among them, human voices. Whispers, passing between figures that look like walkers, but move with living coordination. Daryl realizes the truth first. They are not walkers. They are people wearing walker skin, masks made from faces of the dead, clothing made from walker flesh, moving within herds as camouflage. It is the technique Michonne pioneered, masking human scent with walker decay taken to nightmarish extreme. These are the Whisperers, a group that has survived by rejecting everything human. They live like animals, hunt like predators, wear the dead as disguise and move among herds safely. They have territory, they claim, and they defend it through terror. The Pike boundary was their declaration: this land is ours, leave or die. Their leader is Alpha. She appears at a summit Rick arranges, attempting diplomacy before resorting to violence. Alpha is skeletal, hard, utterly without conventional humanity. She speaks of her people as returning to nature's truth, that civilization is weakness, that the strong survive. By embracing primal reality, she shows Rick the horde she controls, thousands of walkers corralled in a valley, trapped behind barriers, waiting. She can release them any time, can direct them toward communities, can use them as weapons of mass destruction. This is her power, not soldiers or weapons, but the ability to weaponize the dead themselves. Rick attempts negotiation, offers to recognize Whisperer territory if they respect community boundaries, proposes peaceful coexistence. Alpha seems to accept. She even trades hostages, including Lydia, her own daughter, who she seems willing to sacrifice to maintain the peace. But Alpha is lying. She does not want peace. She wants dominance through fear. The Pike boundary was psychological warfare, establishing that she can kill with impunity, that the community's walls and weapons cannot protect them from an enemy that moves among the dead. Lydia becomes a window into Whisperer philosophy. She was raised in the group, knows no other life. Her mother is a monster who used her as bait, who beat her, who taught her that love is weakness. But exposure to Alexandria's community confuses her. She sees people helping each other without immediate reciprocity, sees children playing without it being mere survival training, sees a different way of being human. Carl becomes close to her, the only peer who understands what it means to grow up in Apocalypse. They bond over shared trauma, over the impossibility of normal adolescence. Lydia begins to question everything her mother taught her, begins to wonder if the Whisperer's rejection of humanity is philosophy or pathology. Alpha returns for Lydia, demands her daughter back. When the communities refuse, Alpha escalates. She infiltrates Alexandria during a community fair, an event meant to celebrate alliance between settlements. Moves through the crowds wearing walker skin. Invisible in plain sight, she murders multiple people, takes hostages, leaves another message in blood. The communities do not control anything. Their walls are illusion. Their security is theater. Alpha can strike anywhere, anytime, and they cannot stop her. The communities panic. If Alpha can infiltrate their most secure gatherings, nowhere is safe. The psychological impact is devastating. People stop trusting strangers, stop gathering in groups. The social cohesion they have built begins to fracture under paranoia. Daryl proposes an aggressive response. Hunt Alpha down, eliminate her, destroy the Whisperers, leadership. Carol agrees immediately. Others are hesitant. The Whisperers are not like the Saviors. They have no fixed base to attack, no infrastructure to destroy. They are ghosts in walker skin, impossible to pin down. But doing nothing means accepting terror as permanent condition. So a coalition task force forms. Daryl, Carol, Aaron, Magna, and others. They will track Alpha, infiltrate Whisperer territory, either capture or kill her. Break the Whisperer's power through decapitation strike. The hunt is harrowing. The Whisperers move constantly. They leave false trails, set traps, use walker herds as cover and weapons. Several coalition fighters die in ambushes. Others are separated and lost in the wilderness. It becomes clear that the Whisperers are fighting on their chosen ground, and they are experts at wilderness warfare. Carol becomes reckless. She takes unnecessary risks, volunteers for suicide missions. Her grief over Henry's death has metastasized into death wish. She wants to kill Alpha even if it means dying in the attempt. Daryl tries to pull her back but cannot reach her through the trauma. Then Negan becomes relevant again. He has been imprisoned in Alexandria for years, watching, listening, understanding exactly what is happening. He sees that conventional tactics will not work against Alpha, that she is running psychological operations similar to what he once did, that defeating her requires someone who thinks like her, someone brutal, strategic, amoral. Negan proposes a deal. Let him out. Let him infiltrate the Whisperers. He can gain Alpha's trust in ways the communities cannot. He can get close enough to strike. All he asks is freedom afterward exile rather than imprisonment. Rick is dead by this point, killed by Whisperers during an early confrontation. Michonne leads Alexandria now, and she faces an impossible choice. Trust Negan, the man who murdered Glenn and Abraham. Give him freedom in exchange for eliminating Alpha. It is a devil's bargain. But they are losing the war, Michonne agrees. Negan is released. He walks into Whisperer territory alone, unarmed, wearing walker skin. He approaches Alpha and offers his services. He flatters her, mirrors her philosophy, proves his value by helping corral walkers and defend against threats. He becomes her confidant, maybe more. The communities have no idea if he has genuinely defected or is maintaining cover. Months pass with no word. Some believe Negan betrayed them. Others think he is dead. The Whisperers continue their campaign of terror, random attacks, kidnappings, and the constant threat of the massive horde Alpha controls. Carol cannot wait for Negan's uncertain plan. She takes matters into her own hands, leads a small team deep into Whisperer territory. They locate the valley where Alpha keeps the horde, contained a canyon filled with thousands upon thousands of walkers, waiting to be released as a doomsday weapon. Carol makes a catastrophic decision. She will destroy Alpha's leverage by destroying the horde. She plants explosives, creates noise to draw the walkers into a kill zone, ignites everything. But the explosion does not contain the horde, it releases it. Thousands of walkers break free. They flood out of the valley in every direction. Some head toward communities. Others scatter into wilderness. The weapon Carol tried to eliminate becomes an uncontrolled plague sweeping across the region. The communities mobilize for desperate defense. They establish fallback positions, reinforce walls, evacuate vulnerable outposts. The horde splits and reforms, flows like water around obstacles. No amount of firepower can stop such numbers. They can only delay and divert. Hilltop is overrun first. Despite fortifications and experienced defenders, the sheer mass of walkers collapses the walls. The residents evacuate barely in time. Maggie leads them out through back routes as their home burns behind them. Everything they built is consumed. Alexandria faces similar assault. Waves of walkers pressing against walls designed for much smaller numbers. The defenders fire until ammunition runs low, fall back to secondary positions, prepare to abandon the settlement if necessary. In the chaos, Negan acts. He leads Alpha away from her people, claiming to show her something. Gets her alone in the woods. Then he kills her, cuts her throat, decapitates her, brings her head back to Carol as proof. The Whisperers' leadership collapses. Without Alpha's iron control, the group splinters. Some want revenge. Others want to fade back into the wilderness. A few seek integration with the communities. Beta Alpha's second-in-command tries to rally them for final assault, but the cohesion is gone. Beta leads the remnant of the horde toward Alexandria in suicide attack. He is massive, brutal, wearing so much walker skin he seems more dead than alive. He breaks through defenses, kills multiple defenders, seems unstoppable until he is mobbed by both walkers and humans and finally brought down. The horde dissipates. Without Whisperer guidance, the walkers return to their normal shambling behavior. They are still dangerous, but no longer a coordinated threat. The Coalition's defenders spend days clearing scattered groups, establishing new perimeter defenses, counting casualties. The losses are staggering. Hilltop destroyed, Alexandria severely damaged, hundreds dead from the communities. The kingdom evacuates entirely, Ezekiel's people scattering to other settlements. The carefully built infrastructure of the Alliance is shattered, but the Whisperers are finished. Those who survive flee far from community territory or surrender and are integrated as refugees. Alpha is dead. Beta is dead. The philosophy they represented, that humanity should embrace animal nature, is discredited by its own practitioners. Negan stands before Michonne having fulfilled his bargain. He killed Alpha. He helped end the Whisperer threat. He wants his freedom as promised. Michonne faces the choice Rick once made: execute him for past crimes or honor the agreement. She exiles him, bans him from all allied communities. He is free, but friendless. He walks into the wilderness alone, carrying nothing, heading nowhere. It is freedom, but of the most hollow kind. He has survived, but lost everything that makes survival meaningful. Carol deals with the consequences of her actions. The horde she accidentally released killed people she loved, destroyed communities she helped build. She struggles with guilt that has no resolution. Daryl stays with her, as he always has. They are both damaged beyond repair, but still functional, still surviving, still protecting what remains. The communities begin rebuilding again. It is exhausting. They have rebuilt so many times. Each cycle strips away more optimism, more belief that they are progressing towards stability. But they continue because the alternative is surrender. The Whisperer War teaches them that unconventional threats require unconventional responses, that psychological warfare can be as devastating as military force, that enemies who reject all civilized norms are hardest to defeat because standard tactics do not apply. But it also teaches them resilience, that communities can be destroyed and rebuilt, that alliances can fracture and reform, that humans will continue constructing civilization from ruins because we cannot help ourselves. It is our nature, as much as violence and fear. The question becomes, how many times can they rebuild before there is nothing left to build with? How many catastrophes can they survive before the survivors themselves are too broken to continue? When does resilience become merely the inability to recognize when you should stop? These questions haunt the survivors as they clear rubble and bury the dead and begin once more to construct something from nothing. They are exhausted, they are traumatized, but they are alive, and while they are alive, they will build. Because humans do not know how to do otherwise. Civilization, at its core, is organized inequality. We tell ourselves stories about progress, about justice, about the common good. But every complex society in history has been built on hierarchies, rulers and subjects, owners and workers, citizens and outsiders. The machinery of civilization requires some to have power over others. The question is never whether inequality will exist, only what forms it will take and how it will be justified. The communities are rebuilding from the Whisperer devastation when the strangers arrive. They are soldiers, not survivors playing soldier, but actual military personnel in maintained uniforms, carrying standardized weapons, moving with professional discipline. They represent something the survivors thought extinct: organized government, the Commonwealth, 50,000 people, a network of settlements centered around a pre-war city that was fortified and expanded. They have functioning infrastructure, electricity throughout, running water, communication networks. They have industry, manufacturing, agriculture on scale, even entertainment. They have social structure, laws, courts, police, jobs specializing beyond mere survival. It is everything the communities have been trying to build, everything they thought impossible. The Commonwealth is not post-apocalyptic survivors. They are a restored civilization functioning at near pre-war standards. The Commonwealth soldiers are on a recruitment mission. They are expanding their territory, absorbing smaller communities, offering protection and prosperity in exchange for integration. They present this as humanitarian mission, bringing isolated survivors into safety, sharing resources, rebuilding America one community at a time. To the exhausted survivors of Alexandria and Hilltop, it seems like salvation. Michonne is skeptical but intrigued. Maggie sees opportunity for her scattered people. Ezekiel, dying from cancer that cannot be treated in their primitive medical facilities, sees hope for cure. They accept the Commonwealth's invitation to visit, to see for themselves what has been achieved. What they find is remarkable and disturbing in equal measure. The Commonwealth is genuinely impressive. Streets are clean, buildings are maintained. Citizens wear varied clothing, not scavenged rags but manufactured garments indicating different social roles. There are restaurants, shops, entertainment venues. Children attend schools. People have jobs that are not directly survival-related: teachers, musicians, clerks, engineers. But beneath the prosperity, rigid class structure, the Commonwealth is stratified by pre-war occupation. If you were a doctor before the outbreak, you are a doctor now. If you were a janitor, you remain a janitor. The system is designed to recreate old social hierarchies rather than build new ones based on apocalypse skills. Pamela Milton rules as governor. She inherited the position the Commonwealth was founded by her predecessor, and she assumed control through bloodline rather than election or merit. She surrounds herself with an elite class: former professionals, business owners, politicians. These people live in mansions, have servants, control resource distribution. The working class lives in cramped apartments, works long hours for minimal compensation, has limited social mobility. The Commonwealth provides stability but not opportunity. It has recreated the old world's inequality without the old world's illusion of potential advancement. Eugene finds love here: Stephanie, a radio operator who shares his passion for communication technology. She represents the Commonwealth's promise that specialized skills matter, that intellectuals can thrive, that there is space for romance and culture beyond constant survival. Eugene advocates for integration, sees the Commonwealth as worth its flaws. Princess, a survivor they encountered during their roomie journey, struggles with the Commonwealth's rigid structure. She is chaotic, irreverent, mentally unstable from years of isolation. The Commonwealth demands conformity, demands that people fit into predetermined social roles. She does not fit. She is marked as problem case, monitored, restricted. Ezekiel receives medical treatment. The Commonwealth has hospitals, doctors, pharmaceutical manufacturing. They operate on his tumor, provide chemotherapy, give him years he would not have otherwise. But the treatment comes with obligation. He must work to repay the medical debt, must accept his assigned social role, must surrender autonomy for survival. The communities back home debate integration. The Commonwealth offers genuine security, resources beyond anything they could achieve independently: medical care, education, infrastructure, protection from both walkers and human threats. The cost is surrendering their independence, becoming part of a system they did not build and cannot control. Michonne recognizes the trap. The Commonwealth is not offering alliance, they are offering absorption. Small communities lose autonomy, leaders lose authority. The egalitarian structures the survivors built through shared struggle are replaced by oligarchic hierarchy, where power concentrates at the top. She refuses integration, attempts to leave with those who share her concerns. But the Commonwealth does not easily release potential citizens. They apply pressure, diplomatic at first, then economic. They cut off trade, position military forces near community borders, make clear that independence is not really an option being offered. Lance Hornsby emerges as the Commonwealth's true power. He is Pamela Milton's deputy governor, the strategist who manages expansion while she maintains public face. Lance is intelligent, ruthless, sophisticated in his manipulation. He uses carrots and sticks expertly, offers communities benefits for cooperation, threatens consequences for resistance. He approaches Maggie separately. Hilltop is vulnerable, still rebuilding from Whisperer destruction. He offers reconstruction assistance, military protection, integration into Commonwealth trade networks. In exchange, Hilltop becomes a Commonwealth satellite, autonomous in name, but controlled in practice through economic dependence. Maggie is torn. Her people are suffering. Children are hungry. Structures are ruins. The Commonwealth can solve these problems immediately, but accepting means surrendering what they fought to build, means accepting that their experiment in egalitarian survival was naive, that hierarchy and control are necessary for stability at scale. Lance also begins secret operations. He wants resources the communities control: a strategic location, a weapons cache, an agricultural land. He cannot take them openly, too politically costly. So he uses subterfuge, plants agents within communities, creates conflicts that weaken resistance, arranges accidents that eliminate leaders who oppose integration. Aaron discovers evidence of Commonwealth interference, communications that do not align with their stated intentions, agents provocateurs stirring up tensions between communities, supply shipments that never arrive, blamed on raiders but actually diverted by Commonwealth logistics. He brings evidence to Mission and Maggie. They realize the Commonwealth is not benevolent government restoring order. It is imperial power expanding territory. The difference is sophistication. They use economic pressure instead of military conquest, diplomatic manipulation instead of overt violence. But the end result is the same subjugation of independent communities under centralized control. Resistance forms. Not military, they cannot defeat Commonwealth forces in open combat, but political. Communities begin coordinating, sharing intelligence. Refusing Commonwealth offers collectively rather than negotiating individually. Building alternative trade, networks that bypass Commonwealth control. The Commonwealth responds by tightening pressure. Lance moves military units closer to community borders, not attacking, just demonstrating capability, making clear that resistance has costs. Some communities crack, accept integration to avoid confrontation. Others hold out but struggle under economic isolation. Inside the Commonwealth, dissent grows. The working class sees that the system serves elites exclusively, that reconstruction benefits those who already had power, that social mobility is myth. You are born into a class and die there. Labor organizers begin forming networks, planning strikes, demanding reforms. Pamela Milton's response is repression. She increases security patrols, arrests organizers on fabricated charges, uses her control over food distribution to pressure dissent. The benevolent civilization facade cracks, revealing authoritarian control beneath. Mercer becomes crucial. He is the Commonwealth's military commander, the man who controls the soldiers and security forces that maintain order. He is also increasingly uncomfortable with how that order is maintained. He sees the inequality, sees the repression, sees that the Commonwealth is rebuilding old injustices rather than creating something better. Eugene reaches Mercer through his sister Max, a woman Eugene befriends who works in the governor's office. Max is idealistic, believes the Commonwealth should be reformed, not abandoned. She leaks information about Pamela's corruption, evidence of resource hoarding, preferential treatment for elites, manipulation of labor systems. Mercer faces a decision. He can maintain loyalty to the system that promoted him, or he can support reform, knowing it means betraying the governor and potentially destroying the Commonwealth's stability. He is a soldier. He values order, but he also recognizes that unjust order breeds eventual revolution. The crisis comes when walkers breach the Commonwealth's walls, not through failure of defenses, through sabotage. Someone deliberately opened access points, created vulnerabilities, let the dead flood in to destabilize the system. Lance Hornsby is revealed as the saboteur. His gambit is complex. He wants Pamela removed, wants to install himself as leader, but needs crisis to justify power consolidation. He calculated that a Walker breach would create chaos that he could then resolve, positioning himself as savior. He is willing to let thousands die to achieve political objectives. But the breach is worse than anticipated. Walkers pour into residential districts, overwhelm security forces. The Commonwealth's vaunted military capability proves inadequate when fighting inside densely populated areas. Civilians are trapped, children are dying, the elite's protected compounds are compromised. Pamela's response is evacuation of the elite. She prioritizes protecting the wealthy and connected, abandons working-class districts to the Walker influx, orders her security forces to maintain corridor for elite escape while leaving others to die. It is the final revelation of what the Commonwealth truly is: feudal system where common people are expendable. Mercer rebels. He redirects military forces to protect civilians, opens elite compounds as shelters for working-class families, directly countermands Pamela's orders. It is mutiny. It is also the only moral choice. Michonne, Maggie, and others from the communities arrive during the crisis, not to conquer, to help. They bring fighters, share tactics learned from years of Walker combat, coordinate with Mercer to clear districts and establish safe zones. They demonstrate that the community's experience is valuable, that the Commonwealth needs them as much as they supposedly need the Commonwealth. The battle to reclaim the Commonwealth takes days. Systematic clearing of buildings, establishing secure perimeters, protecting civilians while eliminating walkers. It is exhausting work requiring coordination between Commonwealth forces and community fighters working together despite political tensions. Lance is killed during the fighting, not heroically but pathetically, trapped by the crisis he created. Pamela survives but is discredited. Her abandonment of common citizens destroys any remaining legitimacy. She is arrested by her own security forces under Mercer's command. The Commonwealth faces existential question: what comes next? The old system is shattered. Pamela's oligarchy is rejected. But 50,000 people still need governance, need resource distribution, need organization at scale that small communities cannot provide. Mercer proposes federation. The Commonwealth remains a central hub providing infrastructure, manufacturing, medical care that require economy of scale, but communities retain autonomy, participate in governance through representative council, share resources through negotiated agreement rather than imposed extraction. It is compromise between centralized efficiency and local control. Ezekiel becomes crucial advocate. He has seen both systems, has led the kingdom as theatrical monarch, has lived in Commonwealth as cancer patient, understands strengths and weaknesses of each. He argues for middle path, that neither total centralization nor complete independence works at scale, that they must build hybrid system taking best elements of both. The new structure is messy, contentious. Different communities have different priorities. The Commonwealth's working class demands immediate reforms, redistribution of hoarded resources, dismantling of rigid class system, accountability for elite exploitation. The communities demand guarantees of autonomy, no forced integration, no economic coercion, no military pressure. Negotiations take months. There are setbacks. Some communities refuse participation. Some Commonwealth elite attempt restoration of old hierarchy, but gradually a new equilibrium emerges. Not perfect, not permanent, but functional. The Commonwealth transforms from imperial power into something more complex, a federal system where centralization serves shared interests rather than elite control. Communities contribute resources and receive infrastructure support. Labor is compensated fairly rather than exploited. Social mobility becomes possible through merit rather than birth. It is fragile. It requires constant negotiation. Different factions have different visions of what the rebuilt world should be, but it is also progress. Real progress, not returning to pre-war structures, but building something adapted to post-collapse reality. Michonne looks across the rebuilt Commonwealth and sees possibility, not utopia, not solution to all problems, but evidence that humans can organize at scale without resorting to tyranny or exploitation, that the hard lessons of survival can inform rather than corrupt governance. The final scene is simple but profound: a council meeting. Representatives from Alexandria, Hilltop, the Commonwealth, Oceanside, and other communities. Arguing, negotiating, compromising, doing the difficult work of collective decision-making. It is boring, it is tedious, it is civilization, because civilization is not walls or infrastructure or technology. It is people choosing cooperation over conflict, choosing negotiation over violence, choosing to build systems that serve collective interest rather than individual power. The walkers still exist, the dead still walk, the world is still dangerous, but humans are doing what humans have always done: organizing, building, creating structure from chaos, not because we are optimistic, not because we believe in inevitable progress, but because we are human, and this is what we do. We survive, we adapt, we build, we fail, we rebuild, we continue. And perhaps that is enough. Perhaps that is all civilization ever was, or can be: the stubborn refusal to surrender to entropy, the insistence on meaning in a universe that offers none, the choice to create rather than merely consume. The story ends not with victory but with continuity, not with problems solved but with people committed to solving them, not with certainty but with determination. The world ended, humanity survived, and now, finally, civilization returns, not as restoration of what was lost but as creation of something new, something built from ruins and trauma and hard-won wisdom, something imperfect but precious, something worth fighting for.